This is Dr. Jonathan Hansen, President of World Ministries International, and I want to welcome you to the Warning Television program. Today I have a special guest with me. Her name is Cassidy DiSanza. Cassidy DiSanza. She's a special lady because she was married to Mike DiSanza. And you say, well, who cares? Well, Mike was a policeman, a New York policeman. You know, all the problems we're having right now in America with racism and a liberal agenda to try to bring down society. And so where policemen have been the protectors of society, and I would say in many ways the heroes of society, now they have been devaluated in the age we live in. I think it's a shame. So I certainly still want to honor them. Her husband, Mike, was with the New York Police Department for 22 years. And he became the president of the International Cops for Christ. Now, policemen have unique problems because they deal with the worst of society. They see the worst part of society. Man many times becoming a beast, how cruel man can be to their fellow man. They see all sorts of crimes, what we would call sin. All types of debauchery, all types of sexual perversion. Innocent, the most innocent, being brutally raped, killed, torn apart, decapitated, cut apart at times. Yes, cops are human. Policemen are human. They have feelings, they have emotions. It's hard to deal with this type of incident, to watch this type of behavior, to have to deal with civilization that is turned upside down, especially now where instead of honoring the policemen, we have devaluated them. Pigs in a blanket and all sorts of nonsense that Black Lives Matter, that people want to turn this country into a new world order, into a form of Marxism. Instead of one nation under God, they're trying to dethrone God, take God out of the equation, and bring America into the new world order. I have a special place in my heart for policemen. As you know, I was in law enforcement for 10 years. I was the president of the Fellowship of Christian Police Officers, as well as on the SWAT team, Special Weapons and Tactics. Now, obviously, I've been traveling the world apostolically and prophetically since 1985. But again, I have a special place in my heart for policemen. A book was written, A Cop for Christ, by Mike DiSanza, Anne's husband. We're going to be discussing that book right now. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to open up our hearts and realize that policemen need to be prayed for. They need to be honored and respected. If you take law out of the equation, out of society, we are nothing but the animal kingdom, the rule of the jungle, where the strongest beast prevails. You don't want that. Where your women, your children, your little girls, there's no safety. Welcome, Ann, to the Warning Television program.
Thank you, Pastor.
Well, I'll tell you, a cop for Christ. Like you heard me say, I hold this in a special place of respect and honor. So tell me a little bit. Tell me about Mike's life. We're going to get into it, but I'm sure in this book it goes into Mike's life, correct?
Yes, it does, in great detail.
So I read, like chapter 1, and I gave it my own title.
Yeah.
The Catholic fear and things like this.
Yeah.
But why don't you tell us a little bit about Mike's life and what caused him to go into law enforcement? I mean, what's in this book?
Well, Mike and I were married very young, and we both came from very poor families. and we lived in a ghetto, and we were trying to find a way out of the ghetto without having any formal, education at
Now,
that
is the
time.
ghetto the Bronx?
Yeah, well, he grew up in the Bronx, and I had grown up in Manhattan.
Manhattan, okay.
Yeah, and when we got married, we moved to the Bronx, to his neighborhood. He thought he was bringing me up in the world. Okay.
Was he?
I didn't think so.
You didn't think so?
But there were things, there were things more family oriented about some of the areas in the Bronx. People, in Manhattan, where people were just a lot of tourism, business and stuff, it was totally different. But we were trying to find a way out, and it seemed like I would ride the subway back and forth to work, and you'd see all these ads for different jobs. And one day I brought home an application for him to apply for the New York City Police Department.
Wow.
And he said, "Oh, I can't do this, you have to study and da 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 da." And anyway, to make a long story short, I helped him to study. And in the book, he calls me a tough taskmaster.
Wow.
And when he took the test, 80 was the passing mark. And there were like 50,000 people took the test, and they were only going to hire 4,000.
4,000.
New York City Police Department averages around 40,000 police officers.
My goodness.
At any one time. So when we got the results of the test, of course, I got the mail before he did, and I opened it because I couldn't wait. And when he came home, I told him, "Mike, guess what?" He said, "What?" I says, "You passed." He said, "No." He says, "What did I get?" He's thinking maybe 80, 82. He scored a 92 on the test. He was so excited.
Wow.
So this gave us something to celebrate. We had an opportunity to, make a better living, to have medical benefits, which we had never had before. And it was a real good opportunity for us to save our money and get out of the ghetto.
That first chapter, the fear of Catholicism, and then this second chapter, I remember he joined a gang because he got beat up, and they tried to steal his money, and so he joined a gang to try to have some protection
from himself.
And then a cop who cared said, "Get in," and got him involved with boxing. In fact, Mike at that young age, was sort of arrogant, thought he had beat up the cop.
He was a little scrapper.
Yeah, but one poke and he was flat on his back. He opened his eyes and the cop was looking down at him, and they became good friends.
Yeah.
Because he could tell the cop loved him. He cared for him.
He became a great mentor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, those are two great chapters, and there's 20 chapters in this book.
Oh, each chapter is better and better. I've had so many people tell me that they've read the book within 24 hours. They just couldn't put it down. It's Mike was a great storyteller, and when he tells a story, he brings you right to where it was happening. You can just visualize it.
Wow. Now, in this book, he goes into some of the problems that policemen face.
Yeah.
And, I gave a little bit of a explanation in the beginning of the program.
Yeah.
But why don't you go into it a little bit? What does he go into in this book, and what's some of the answers, the solutions?
Well, some of the problems that he discusses in the book is there's a high rate of suicide among police officers. They often feel like they're nobody understands me. Nobody knows what I'm going through. And not only is society against them, because society sees a cop as the enemy. A cop stops you from speeding because he's out to get you. A cop stops you from speeding because maybe several hours before or the day before he saw a family, brutally injured in a tragic car accident.
Sure, sure.
And he's trying to protect you from that, but people see it as, oh, he's trying to get me. I was, going over the speed limit. But they often feel like nobody cares about them.
And then sometimes they come up with, some ignorant people, although there are some situations where it's relevant. But, some people say, oh, they got to get their quota. Did you get your quota?
Yeah.
Not realizing they're trying to save your life.
Yes, yes, yes. And I remember one time, and I'm not sure if it's in the book or not, but I remember one time somebody actually looked at him and spit in his face, some horrible, venomous spit.
Yeah, I've had that happen to me.
And said to him at the time, I've got AIDS, and now you've got AIDS too.
Wow.
It did end up, he did pick up Hep C, but and was not able to donate blood any longer. But thank God he did not get AIDS. But people were just evil, and really treated them brutally.
Now, when did he retire?
He retired in 1989.
And the book goes into his retirement?
Yes, it does a little bit. It just, in the beginning of his retirement, when he went to Colombia and met a man called Eduardo Betancourt, who was part of the drug cartel in Colombia, and he got saved, and the Holy Spirit just made them a kindred spirit, and they did a lot of work together in ministry together. And Mike was instrumental in winning Eduardo's family to the Lord, and then was instrumental in getting him into the United States to do some ministry here as well. So that was kind of exciting.
Now, this book is called A Cop for Christ.
Yes.
Mike DiSanza.
Yes.
A Cop for Christ. Now, Mike also became the president of Cops International.
Yes, Cops for Christ International, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And started chapters all over the world, all over the country, and, all the only continent he didn't go to was Australia.
So then, how many countries did he travel to?
79 countries of the world. Some of them several times.
Over a period of how many years?
Oh, gosh. He actually started traveling, I'm thinking in the 80s.
Was he still on the force when he started traveling?
No, yes, he was. Actually, our pastor in New York was the first person to send him out to preach. And he was originally from Alberta, Canada, and sent him to his hometown area of Alberta.
So now he retired at what year?
89.
Okay. Yeah, I got out of law enforcement at 85.
Yeah.
Started traveling the world. So basically, he started traveling the world about 89.
Well, he actually started when our pastor sent him out.
What year was that?
It might have been 82, 84.
Okay.
I don't know. It was early 80s.
He started traveling even before he left the force.
Yeah, he would take his vacation time and go.
To do it. Yeah. Well, that is neat. You could tell probably that I really care.
Yeah.
I have a heart for policemen because they are the protectors of society under God.
Yes.
The law was made for the lawless. The Bible tells us. I had no problems when I was on the force if you came under church authority to put you there, but if you would not, I had no problems taking you out of church and putting you in prison because the law was made for the lawless. God backs law enforcement. Without them, we would be all victims.
Yes.
This would be hell on earth, so to speak.
Yes.
But people who do not understand that really do society a great disservice.
Yes.
So talk a little bit more about things in this book, because I want people to get this book, A Cop for Christ, Mike DiSanza. Tell us a little bit more. That's what's in this book, Anne.
Well, he talked about a good friend of his who was so excited. He had 37 days to retire, and he's in the locker room changing into his uniform, and he's all excited. I've only got 37 more days until I retire. And Mike was feeling a little bit jealous, at the time, thinking he's got a couple more years, and this guy's only got 37 days. I wish I was him, kind of thing, And the guy, got changed into his uniform and then went on duty. And it was in the Columbus Circle area of Manhattan. And Mike was still changing, and he heard a siren go out in the precinct, and shots fired, So he ran out, half in uniform, half out of uniform, and there was a circular staircase. And by the time he got to the top, he didn't, never knowing what was on each row of the staircase as he's running up. And when he got to the top, his good friend Joe, who had 37 days to retire, was shot dead.
Wow. Wow.
So sad.
So how was he shot dead? Was Joe responding to try to help somebody, or did they ambush him, or what?
I'm not really sure of what the incident was. I don't really recall all of the details. But I remember Mike taking him in his arms and just having such sadness, and he came home so distraught. And many times he would come home so distraught from work.
Well, that's things that normal people with a normal job, so to speak, do not understand.
Yeah.
The pressure, not only on the, if we want to say the warrior, but on the wife.
Yeah.
And sometimes the children.
Yeah.
Because when they bring it home, like you said, there's the most suicide and one of the highest divorce rates, because without Jesus Christ, you bring it home. You bring your emotions finally home.
Yeah.
And they come out.
Yeah. He would come home. He worked the midnight shift for most of his career. And he would come home in the morning, and I would always try to make a big breakfast for him, because he didn't usually eat at night, because the neighborhoods he worked in, he didn't always want to eat there. So, or sometimes just didn't have the opportunity to. But he'd be really hungry and make this big breakfast, and sometimes his friend Vinny would come over, and they'd both have breakfast, and they'd start talking, and I'd be trying to do my housework. The kids went to school, and they'd be pacing up and down. I said, guys, you're not on patrol anymore. Relax already. And they just couldn't. They were just pacing up and down, talking, and I'm like, it was kind of, as an outsider looking at them, they were good for each other, but yet I was like, oh, can't you just get out of my living room so I can run the vacuum cleaner?
When I was on the force, a lot of these things are so similar, but I did get out in '85. But society today really has gone to another extent of making these people, instead of heroes, enemies.
Yeah.
When years ago, like Leave It to Beaver, I mean, society recognizes these are our friends, and they taught their children, these are our friends. Go to them.
Yeah.
But today, you have people that are supposed to be adults, parents, that are teaching their children total disrespect for authority, total disrespect for policemen, and to hate them, to fight them.
We were taught, we taught our children when they were little, if you're ever in trouble, go find a policeman.
Yeah.
And children today aren't always getting that message.
Now, I know in this book, it tells how a black woman once grabbed Mike.
Yeah.
And tell the story.
Yeah, he was having a problem with his blood pressure because he had a head injury, and he didn't want to go out sick because he was still on probation. And he went to work with this head injury, and he started having a hallucination. Wasn't himself, his blood pressure. And he visualized two caskets in front of him. One was his mother and one was his father. And he was filled with all this grief for them and started crying, and then went down on one knee, and his nose started bleeding, which would happen with the blood pressure. And this black woman came over to him and said, "It's okay, son.
Wow.
It's okay." She said, "Jesus loves you. Jesus is with you." And he was so comforted and filled with so much peace when this woman just touched him. It meant so much at that time.
You know, was he born again at that time? Or
No, he was not.
see, and to me, that is such a beautiful story
Yeah.
of a Christian that is not a racist, that is not tied up with any one culture or race, nationality. She's a child of God, like we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And she just goes to a white policeman
In distress.
and starts to show him love. The
Yes,
love of Jesus.
The love of Jesus just
I mean,
emanated from her.
and that is such a beautiful story.
Yeah.
A black woman comforting a white cop.
Yeah.
Who's not born again at the time.
No.
But probably that was one of the things that led him to Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he said he remembered going on the ground and seeing a cross, illuminated cross by a storefront, and it said, Jesus saves. And she had just said all this stuff about Jesus to him, and he saw this cross, and he kind of went out cold and was taken to the hospital. And a couple of days later, he was home recuperating, and he was thinking about this. And he remembered as a child, he was walking around the streets of New York, and he heard a street preacher, you know, and we used to have a lot of street preachers in New York at one time. And this street preacher pointed to him and said, you, when you get saved, you need to read the Gospel of John. And this all of a sudden just came back to him as an adult. And I mean, he remembered being embarrassed and mortified that this preacher would single him out. You know, what's people going to think, you know? And he says, I think I'm going to try to read that. And he says, Ann, don't we have a Bible here somewhere? And I said, sure, we have the big old Catholic Bible. Took it out. And he started at the beginning, and he saw Genesis. He thought it said genius. Then he said, that can't be it. He closed it. And he says, let me look some more. Then he started seeing some pictures of Jesus in there. And then he saw the Gospel of John. And he says, oh, this is what he told me to read. And he started reading that. And he said it wasn't John 3:16 that grabbed him. That says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believeth in him would have everlasting life. He said that didn't grab him because he saw life as poverty and struggling and turmoil. Who would want to live forever in this life is what he was thinking. But when he saw John 17, where it said God did not send Jesus to condemn the world, but to save the world, that really grabbed him. And he, at that moment, you know, committed his life to the Lord. Didn't know what it was.
Wow.
Had no clue.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was sometime later when he saw a kid handing out tracts. And he says, oh, kid, give me one of those. And he was on duty. And he read the tract, and it talked about being born again. And he says, oh, that's me. I'm born again, you know. And it was really exciting. And you know, that was a big revelation for him.
Wow. We're about out of time, but in about
30
30 seconds, what made him become the president of the International Cops for Christ?
Well, he had this passion for evangelism and traveled the whole world, and nobody else in the fellowship was willing to do it, so to speak. So they said, Mike, you're doing all this work. You need to be our president. And
like I shared with you, no matter where you go around the world, policemen face similar problems. They're all human. They have the same emotions, and they have the same struggles.
Yes.
Beautiful story. Beautiful story. Ladies and gentlemen, Cops for Christ, Mike DiSanza. This needs to be in everybody's home, in everybody's church, everybody's library. Policemen are our friends, our heroes. They deserve respect, love, and prayer. God bless you.
The Warning Television and radio programs are means by which Dr. Jonathan Hansen, through World Ministries International, WMI, endeavor to prepare God's people, governments, and society for the soon coming day of Christ the Lord. Dr. Hansen's free monthly newsletter is another means by which this is done. This is sent out in paper hard copy as well as in digital email formats. You can telephone 360-629-5248, 360-629-5248 to request your subscription today, or visit www.worldministries.org, that is www.worldministries.org, and click on the Contact Us link. WMI is a 100% partner-supported ministry. It is through tithes, missions love offerings, and donations given to WMI that Dr. Hansen is able to share the warning message to church leadership, political leaders, and society as a whole. World Ministries International needs the committed support of people who see the increasing relevance of the warning message to be shared in this time we are in. Are you a prayer warrior with an intercessor's anointing and have a burden for Dr. Jonathan Hansen and World Ministries International? If so, we need to hear from you so that we can unite together in strategy and prayer. Telephone 360-629-5248, 360-629-5248, and request to become a member of the Soldiers of the Cross prayer team. Or visit www.worldministries.org and sign up to be a member of Soldiers of the Cross through the prayer and intercessor links on the website. The Lord told Dr. Hansen that there are 200,000 supporting newsletter recipients and 2,000 supporting intercessors in every nation that are there to join in the battle and sounding the alarm to the people and nations. Please join the ranks of those who seek to fight on behalf of the truths of God's Word with the prosperity, liberty, and freedoms it brings. For any monthly commitment of $25 or more, a partner will receive Dr. Hansen's monthly newsletter and 1 week's warning radio message on CD or cassette tape. For any monthly commitment of $100 or more, a partner will receive 4 of Dr. Hansen's warning television programs on DVD, in addition to the warning radio program on CD and the monthly newsletter. Please understand that no materials sent by Dr. Jonathan Hansen and WMI are distributed as a result of a purchase, but are shared with recipients as Dr. Hansen's way of saying thank you for your support. You can support WMI by using Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover by dialing 360-629-5248, 360-629-5248. Again, dial 360-629-5248. You can send a check or money order in U.S. dollars to World Ministries International, P.O. Box 277, Stanwood, Washington, 98292. Shalom, and may the Lord richly bless you.